What if I told you that the single biggest threat to your financial future in your 40s isn't a bad investment, a market crash, or even a job loss? What if the thing quietly destroying your chances of ever being truly rich is something you've been told your entire life to celebrate? Most people hit their 40s earning more than they ever imagined and still end up with nothing real to show for it at 65. Not because they made terrible decisions, not because life dealt them a bad hand, but because they did exactly what everyone around them was doing. They spent like they earned it, and they earned it, so they spent it. And somewhere in that cycle, the window to become truly rich quietly closed without them ever noticing it was open in the first place. I know because I've watched it happen over and over again. The high earner who looks the part completely, the house, the car, the vacations, and is one bad month away from real trouble. One layoff, one medical bill, one economic disruption away from everything unraveling. And then I've watched the other person. The one nobody would ever guess is quietly sitting on $500,000 at 52, completely secure against anything life throws at them, because they made one decision in their 40s that most people never think to make. Same income, completely different outcome. And the gap between those two people is not luck, not timing, and not talent. My name is Ken, and if you've ever felt like your income keeps growing, but your actual financial security keeps shrinking, this channel exists for you. Subscribe and hit that like button, because what we're about to get into might be the most important financial conversation you have this year. Now, before we get into the numbers, let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not telling you to stop enjoying your life. I'm not suggesting you eat rice and beans for the next decade or cancel every vacation you've been looking forward to. What I'm talking about is something far more intentional and far more powerful than basic frugality. It's a deliberate, strategic decision about how you relate to money at the exact moment in your life when that relationship determines everything. It's called living below your means. And when you do it correctly and consistently in your 40s, it doesn't just build wealth, it makes you truly rich in ways that most high earners never get to experience. Here's the core truth that changes how you see everything. There is a fundamental difference between looking wealthy and being truly rich. And in your 40s, when your income is likely the highest it has ever been, those two paths split permanently. You either direct that money toward building real, lasting wealth, or you direct it towards signaling to other people that you're doing well. Most people, without ever consciously deciding, choose the signal, and the signal costs them everything. Think about the genuinely wealthy people you've met in real life. Not celebrities, not social media personalities, the actual, quietly rich people in your own world. The ones you eventually find out are worth several $1,000,000, and you're completely shocked because nothing about the way they live would have told you that. They're not driving the loudest car. They're not renovating every 3 years. They have mastered something that most high earners never develop: the ability to earn significantly more than they spend and to stay completely comfortable with the world not knowing it. That comfort, that quiet confidence, is what truly rich actually looks like from the inside. This becomes the most consequential financial decision of your life when you hit your 40s, because this is when most people's income finally breaks through. Salaries that have doubled or tripled from where they started. Promotions, bonuses, maybe a business that's finally generating real cash. And this is precisely the moment where the trap gets set. Because every income increase comes with invisible social pressure to inflate your life to match it. And most people don't resist it. They don't even notice they're walking into it. The modest apartment becomes a house that requires a significant mortgage. The paid-off car becomes a lease payment that resets every 3 years. The occasional nice dinner becomes the default. The vacation that used to happen once a year now happens twice at a higher price point. The wardrobe quietly shifts. The grocery store changes. None of these decisions feel dramatic in the moment. Each one feels earned. But together, they quietly consume everything the raise was supposed to build. And they do it so gradually that most people never connect the dots until they're staring down their 50s with almost nothing saved and no room left to maneuver. Let me show you exactly what this looks like in real numbers. Meet Ryan and Marcus, both 43, both earning $95,000 a year. Ryan decides to live below his means. He stays in his paid-off car. He keeps his mortgage manageable on the home he bought years ago. He lives the way he lived when he was making $55,000, comfortably but without inflation. Because his expenses stayed low, he's able to consistently invest $38,000 a year. Marcus does what his income level seems to demand. He upgrades to a larger house with a significantly bigger mortgage. He picks up a lease on a new car because he's worked hard and earned it. His dining, his wardrobe, his vacations, all of it rises to meet his new income level. After his expenses and debt payments, he's setting aside maybe $4,000 a year if things go well. Now let's run 10 years forward at a conservative 8% annual return, which is actually below the long-term historical average of a broad stock market index fund. Ryan's investment accounts have grown to roughly $550,000. Marcus has managed to build about $58,000, and that's before accounting for the debt he's been carrying, the car payments he's cycled through, and the credit card balances that tend to follow lifestyle inflation like a shadow. But here's where the real gap becomes impossible to ignore. Ryan's $550,000 portfolio, still growing at 8% annually, is now generating over $44,000 per year in returns. He has essentially rebuilt his entire original salary through investment growth alone, without touching the principal, without working a single extra hour to produce it. Marcus is still entirely dependent on his paycheck. Every month, every dollar is already spoken for before it arrives. He isn't building anything, he's maintaining the appearance of something. And there is a massive difference between those two things, because one of them is on the path to being truly rich, and the other is on the path to being permanently exposed. That is the power of living below your means in your 40s. You create a gap between what comes in and what goes out. And that gap, which most people waste every single month on things they stop noticing 2 weeks after buying them, becomes the engine that funds a future where you are truly rich and nothing can shake that foundation. The psychology behind this is what makes it so rare, because the financial part honestly isn't that complicated. The math is straightforward. The hard part is developing what I'd call lifestyle immunity, the ability to earn more without automatically feeling like you need to spend more. Most people never build this because lifestyle inflation happens so gradually and feels so completely justified at every single step. The raise justifies the better apartment. The better apartment justifies the better car. The better car justifies the wardrobe upgrade. And before anyone notices, the entire raise has been converted into a set of monthly obligations that now require every dollar of that paycheck just to stay afloat. You went from having room to breathe to having none, and it felt like progress the entire time. That's the golden handcuffs, and they don't feel like a trap at all. They feel like success. Right up until the moment you realize you can't take a risk, can't walk away from a job you hate, can't start the business you've been thinking about for years, because your lifestyle has become a fixed cost that gives you absolutely no room to move. That is the opposite of truly rich. That is someone who can be derailed by almost anything: a layoff, a health issue, an economic downturn, a single bad year, and have it unravel everything they've worked for. The person living below their means doesn't have that vulnerability. Their low expenses relative to their income give them options that most people their age simply don't have. They can take the career risk because 3 months without income won't destroy them. They can leave the job, launch the business, take time off, because they haven't built a lifestyle that holds them hostage to a particular paycheck. That flexibility, that ability to absorb disruption without panic, is a core part of what it means to be truly rich. There's also a psychological dimension to this that most people never consider. When you're not constantly upgrading your lifestyle, you sidestep what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. No matter what you acquire, your baseline level of satisfaction resets almost immediately. The new car feels extraordinary for about 3 weeks, then it's just the car. The upgraded house feels like a dream for a month or two, then it's just where you live. But the payment stays for years. The obligation doesn't reset. So you're left carrying the financial cost of something long after the emotional reward has completely evaporated. And because the excitement fades, the natural impulse is to find the next upgrade that brings it back. Which is exactly how lifestyle inflation compounds itself year after year, without you ever truly getting ahead. The people who live below their means and build real wealth have figured out something it takes most people decades to learn. The satisfaction of watching your investment account grow doesn't fade the same way. Every month it climbs, it still feels like real progress, because it is. Permanent, compounding, truly rich progress. This approach also protects you from one of the biggest wealth destroyers that almost nobody talks about directly. Lifestyle inflation doesn't just affect what you spend today, it fundamentally distorts your retirement picture in ways that can be absolutely devastating. The standard guidance from financial planners is that you'll need roughly 70 to 80% of your current income to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. So if lifestyle inflation has you spending $8,000 a month, you need to sustain $96,000 a year in retirement, which, using the standard 4% withdrawal rule, means you need around $2.4 million in invested assets just to maintain your current standard of living. But if you've kept your monthly expenses at $3,000 because you never inflated your lifestyle to match your income, you only need about $900,000 to retire with the same quality of life. You've not only built wealth faster, you've dramatically reduced the amount you need to become truly rich. You're attacking the equation from both sides at the same time. Now, I want to be clear about something, because this is where people consistently misread the strategy. Living below your means is not about refusing to spend money on things that genuinely matter. It's about being ruthlessly honest with yourself about which spending actually improves your life and which spending is just noise you've learned to call normal. There are categories absolutely worth every dollar. Investing in your health through real food and exercise. Investing in your skills and knowledge through education that expands what you're capable of earning and doing. Investing in genuine experiences with people you love, the kind of memories that don't depreciate and don't come with a monthly payment. Those are not places to cut. But there is another entire category of spending that does almost nothing for your actual happiness or your long-term wealth. The car that gets you to the same place as a reliable used one. The designer item that performs identically to the less expensive alternative. The oversized house with rooms that mostly sit empty while you work extra hours to cover the mortgage. These aren't upgrades to your life. They're upgrades to your image. And your image doesn't make you truly rich. Your assets do. Here's a practical exercise worth doing this week. Pull up your last 3 months of bank statements and sort every single expense into one of 3 buckets. First, essentials and genuine quality of life. Second, investments in yourself that will pay real returns in health, income, or relationships. Third, status spending that exists primarily because of social pressure, habit, or the quiet need to look like you're doing well. Most people who actually do this exercise are genuinely surprised by how large that third bucket turns out to be. And every dollar sitting in it is a dollar that could have been quietly building toward a future where you are truly rich. But here's where living below your means gets really powerful. And it's something that most financial content completely misses. When you do this consistently in your 40s, you're not just building a bigger account balance. You're building a version of yourself that has permanently separated identity from consumption. The person who can earn $95,000 and live comfortably on $57,000 has developed a kind of financial strength that most people never acquire. They've broken free from the need to signal anything to anyone. They've discovered that real confidence doesn't come from what you drive or where you shop. It comes from knowing your number. It comes from knowing you could walk away from your job tomorrow and be completely fine. That is truly rich. That is what we're building toward. And that brings us to one of the most destructive financial habits that high earners almost universally fall into: the payment mentality. Most people in their 40s think about affordability in terms of whether the monthly payment fits the budget. The $700 car payment feels responsible because it fits. What they never calculate is that $700 a month is $8,400 a year, and $8,400 invested annually for a decade at 8% grows to over $120,000. They can afford the payment, they just can't afford what that payment is actually costing them in future wealth. And it doesn't stop at cars. Every recurring obligation added to the monthly stack does the same thing. Each one feels manageable on its own, but collectively, they convert your entire income into a series of financial obligations that leave nothing left to build with. Strong cash flow, zero wealth accumulation. And it feels completely fine because all the payments are covered. The truly rich understand that cash flow and net worth are two entirely different scoreboards. You can have one without the other. And for most high earners in their 40s, that's exactly what's quietly happening. Consider also the ripple effects that extend beyond just your own finances. When you're not stressed about money because you're living well below your means, you show up differently, more present, more patient, more engaged with the people you care about. When you're not working extra hours to service lifestyle inflation, you have time and mental bandwidth for the relationships and pursuits that actually fulfill you. And if you have children, they are watching all of it. They learn by example that security and confidence don't come from having the most expensive version of everything. That lesson, absorbed early, can break generational cycles of financial stress that most families never even recognize they're caught in. And it starts with the choices you make right now in your 40s. There's also the resilience factor that becomes increasingly critical as you get older. When the next economic downturn arrives, and it will, the person living below their means isn't scrambling to cut a lifestyle they've grown completely dependent on. They're already operating efficiently. They can absorb the disruption because their financial foundation was never built on the assumption that peak income would always be there. The person who inflated their lifestyle to match every raise has no buffer. Any disruption threatens everything. That's not a foundation, that's exposure. And living below your means in your 40s is how you permanently eliminate that exposure and position yourself to be truly rich no matter what the economy does. Here's what it really comes down to. When you live below your means despite earning significantly more, you start seeing money completely differently than the people around you. Every dollar stops being something to spend when it arrives. It becomes a permanent worker that operates around the clock for the next 20 or 30 years without ever needing a day off. That $100 dinner isn't just $100. Compounded over 20 years at 8%, it represents nearly $470 in future wealth you chose to trade for a single meal. That $60,000 car isn't just $60,000. Invested for 15 years at 8%, that's over $190,000 in real wealth you decided not to build. This isn't about being obsessive or neurotic. It's about developing the awareness that separates the people who reach their 50s truly rich from the people who reach their 50s truly trapped, despite earning the same income their entire working lives. So there you have it. Living below your means in your 40s isn't about sacrifice. It's about strategy. It's about making one consistent decision. The decision to let your lifestyle lag behind your income, and letting time turn that decision into something that makes you truly rich by your 50s. Your colleagues will wonder why you're still driving that car. Your neighbors might assume something is wrong. And meanwhile, you'll be building something they can't see and will never fully understand until it's too late for them to replicate it. You can look wealthy now and spend your 50s still dependent on every paycheck. Or you can live below your means today and spend your 50s truly rich and completely free. That choice is entirely yours. I know which one I'd make. If this video changed the way you think about money, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button right now and subscribe to Ken Invests if you haven't already. We put out videos every week breaking down the financial moves that actually matter, the ones that most people figure out way too late. You being here tells me you're not willing to wait that long. So stick around, because what we cover next might be just as important as what you heard today. And before you go, everything you heard in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Every situation is different, and every decision you make with your money is entirely yours. Please do your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions. I'm just here to help you think. What you do with that thinking is always up to you.